You say you want to change. You dream of rising above, of finally breaking the cycle, of waking up one day and not feeling like you're fighting yourself. But every time you start to climb, something inside pulls you back down. You delay, you disappear, you destroy the very thing you once begged for. And here's the brutal truth. It's not your enemies. It's not your job. It's not even the people who never believed in you. It's you. You are the one placing the glass ceiling over your own head. Not because you're weak, but because somewhere deep down, you've come to believe that pain is safer than possibility. Success feels foreign. Peace feels suspicious. And joy? Joy is a threat, because joy can be taken away, so you sabotage, not out of hatred for yourself, but out of protection. You don't fear failure. You fear what happens if things actually go right, because if it works, you'll have no excuse left, no mask to hide behind, no familiar misery to return to. Just you, exposed, seen, vulnerable, and maybe that's scarier than falling apart. Most people think self-sabotage is laziness, a lack of discipline, a character flaw. But it's not. It's far more complicated and far more human. Self-sabotage is the quiet war between who you are and who you believe you're allowed to be. It's not that you don't want success. It's that a part of you has learned to fear what success demands: change, exposure, growth, and above all, letting go of the identity you've been clinging to for years. In this video, we're not going to throw surface-level solutions at you. You've heard them all before. Wake up early. Break the habit. Just push through. But you don't need more noise. You need clarity. So we're going to go deeper, to the root, to the part of your mind that's been pulling the strings when you weren't looking. We'll explore what psychology and ancient philosophy reveal about the divided self, and how your inner saboteur isn't a villain, but a protector born out of pain. We'll unpack the hidden forces behind your hesitation, your burnout, your cycles of almost contest followed by collapse. And by the end of this video, you won't just understand why you keep getting in your own way. You'll finally be able to see it happening and start to choose something different, not because you've fixed yourself, but because you finally stopped fighting shadows. Why we sabotage ourselves. Self-sabotage isn't new. It's not a flaw of our generation. It's not caused by smartphones or hustle culture or productivity guilt. It's older than that, deeper. It's stitched into the very fabric of being human. Imagine this. You're standing in front of a door. Behind it is everything you've ever wanted. Peace, meaning, love, achievement, a life that feels aligned. Your hand reaches for the handle, but you stop. Not because the door is locked, but because something inside you whispers, "What if it's not real? What if it doesn't last? What if I don't deserve it?" And just like that, you turn around, not because you can't walk through, but because a part of you believes you shouldn't. This isn't laziness. This is fear in disguise. So where does that fear come from? Let's look closer. Not just through psychology, but through the lens of ancient philosophy. Because the battle you're fighting, it's one the greatest thinkers in history have already mapped out. Part 1. Evolutionary psychology. We were built to survive, not to succeed. In the world of your ancient ancestors, success didn't mean fulfillment. It meant exposure. It meant standing out. And standing out meant getting noticed. By predators, by enemies, by nature itself. So our nervous systems evolved to prioritize one thing above all: safety, comfort, familiarity. Even if that familiarity is painful, because predictable pain still feels safer than uncertain joy. Your brain is not wired to make you happy. It's wired to keep you alive, even if that means keeping you stuck. Part 2. Freud's death drive. The unconscious pull towards self-destruction. Freud believed that inside every human being there's a silent force, a drive not toward pleasure or progress, but toward destruction. He called it thanatos, the death drive. It's the part of you that resists healing, that clings to old pain, that repeats harmful patterns, even when you know better. Why? Because there's a strange comfort in collapse. You can't disappoint anyone if you never rise. You can't lose love if you never accept it. You can't fail if you never finish. The death drive says, stay broken. It's safer that way. Part 3. Plato's divided soul. The battle within the self. Long before Freud, Plato described something eerily similar. He said the human soul is divided into 3 parts. 1. Reason, the wise, rational part of you. 2. Spirit, your ambition and willpower. 3. Appetite, your desires and impulses. And when these parts are out of balance, the self turns against itself. It's like having 100 horses pulling your chariot, but in opposite directions. Your reason says, this relationship is good for me. Your appetite whispers, but the chaos feels more exciting. Your spirit says, let's grow. But your fear screams, let's hide. This inner civil war is the true root of self-sabotage, not failure, not weakness, but fragmentation. Part 4. Attachment wounds, repeating the pain. We grew up with, let's go even deeper, into your childhood. Because much of your self-sabotage isn't about the present, it's about the past replaying itself, on loop. If you grew up in a home where love meant walking on eggshells, you'll sabotage peace. If you were praised only when you achieved, you'll burn yourself out to feel worthy. If you were abandoned, ignored, or made to feel invisible, you'll chase people who continue that pattern. Why? Because your nervous system confuses the familiar with the safe. So even if something feels wrong, it feels known, and known feels better than new. Part 5. Modern society reinforces the pattern. Now layer all that with the noise of modern life. The pressure to be enough, the addiction to productivity, the algorithm constantly reminding you of who you're not. We live in a world that tells us, you're only valuable if you're improving. So the moment you pause, the moment you rest, you feel guilty. And guilt becomes the fuel for sabotage. You either run yourself into the ground trying to be better, or you give up entirely, numbing out, self-destructing in private. Because no one taught us how to sit with stillness, how to exist without performing, how to be whole without hustling for our worth. Part 6. The illusion of control through collapse. Here's one final twist of the knife. Sometimes, sabotaging yourself is your way of regaining control. When life feels too uncertain, when success feels too fragile, when love feels too unpredictable, you break it before it can break you. You quit before they can fire you. You ghost them before they can leave. You destroy the good because deep down you believe it was never going to last anyway. It's not weakness. It's defense. It's you trying to hurt less, even if it means hurting yourself. So where does all of this leave you? Right here, in the middle of your own internal storm, fighting ghosts you didn't realize you inherited. But here's the first sign of healing, awareness, because when you finally see the war inside you, you can stop being its casualty and start becoming its commander. Next up, we'll go even deeper. You'll learn the 4 core forces that drive self-sabotage in everyday life, how they show up, how they disguise themselves, and how to break free. The 4 hidden forces behind self-sabotage. You don't wake up one day and decide to ruin your life. Self-sabotage is rarely loud. It doesn't kick down the door, ticks out, it whispers. And these whispers come from 4 deep hidden forces that quietly shape your behavior, your choices, and even your identity. If you don't know they're there, they'll control you. But once you do, you'll finally have a choice. Let's uncover each one. 1. The identity trap. This isn't who I am. This is the most invisible form of sabotage and the most dangerous. You want a better life. You want success, peace, love, and meaning. But deep down, a voice in your head says, people like me don't get things like that. That voice isn't truth, it's programming. Maybe you grew up poor, so wealth feels unfamiliar. Maybe you always felt rejected, so love feels suspicious. Maybe you were always the quiet one, so becoming confident feels fake. The moment you begin to rise, your mind panics. Not because you're doing something wrong, but because you're doing something unfamiliar. Your subconscious identity says, "This version of life doesn't fit the story I've told myself for years," so you destroy the new reality to stay loyal to the old identity. Until you change that internal story, you will always default to the life you think you deserve, even if it breaks you. 2. The fear of responsibility. If I succeed, then what? This is the paradox of progress. On the surface, success seems like freedom, but underneath, it carries weight. You might think you're afraid of failure, but often you're more afraid of what success demands. Success brings responsibility. It brings visibility. It removes your excuses. You can't say, "I'm stuck," if you're actually moving forward. If your dreams came true tomorrow, would you feel free or would you feel exposed? Self-sabotage becomes a way to shrink your world, to make it feel small, safe, controllable again. This is why people win the lottery and lose it all. Why couples finally find peace and then start a fight. Why you get a breakthrough and then pull the plug. Because a part of you still believes, if I get what I want, I'll have no place to hide. 3. The addiction to chaos. Calm feels like danger. This one runs deep. If you've lived through emotional instability, trauma, abuse, unpredictability, your brain wires itself to expect chaos. So when things become calm, it doesn't feel safe, it feels suspicious. You're not bored, you're triggered. That peaceful relationship, it doesn't feel right. That stable job, it lacks excitement. So what do? You stir the pot, you create mess, you chase drama. Because deep down, chaos is the devil you know. Your nervous system associates pain with home. And this is why healing can feel so uncomfortable. Because when you finally feel calm, you don't know what to do with it. 4. The shadow of guilt. I don't deserve this. This force is quiet, but brutal. It shows up when good things start happening in your life. And you feel uncomfortable. Not because the thing is wrong, but because you believe you are. This is often linked to past shame. Something you did and never forgave yourself for. Something that was done to you that made you feel damaged. Or a belief handed down through religion, culture, or family that taught you, I must suffer to be worthy. So when joy arrives, you sabotage it. Not because you don't want it, but because guilt tells you you're not allowed to keep it. And here's the terrifying truth. If you feel unworthy of peace, you'll destroy it. To make your inner world match your outer one. Because a lie we believe about ourselves will always fight to become true. Bonus concept. The comfort of the known. You don't sabotage because you hate yourself. You sabotage because you love familiarity. We are creatures of pattern. We would rather stay in a prison with a view we recognize than step into a freedom we don't trust. So you go back to the relationship you swore you'd leave. You procrastinate the project that could change your life. You reject the compliments, you avoid the opportunities because staying small feels safe, even if it's slowly suffocating you. So what's really happening here? Self-sabotage is a symptom of an identity that's never been updated, of trauma that's never been healed, of beliefs that were never yours, but still define you. It's not a sign you're broken. It's a signal that your internal world is out of sync with the life you're trying to build. Until you face that disconnect, until you integrate the parts of you that are at war, you'll keep burning the bridge, just as you begin to cross it. In the next section, we'll look at real-life examples of how this shows up in everyday people, in love, in work, in creativity, in faith. So you can finally recognize your own patterns, not with shame, but with clarity. Because the more clearly you see the pattern, the less power it holds over you. You might think self-sabotage looks like destruction, dramatic, loud, obvious. But most of the time, it's subtle, almost invisible. It looks like hesitation. It looks like delay. It looks like silence, when something inside you wants to scream. Let's walk through 5 real-life moments where sabotage disguises itself as something else. 1. The job you never applied for. Jason was working a job he hated, underpaid, overworked, and ignored. One night, he found an opening for his dream role. It was a perfect match. His qualifications, his passion, his city. He opened the application, then closed it. "I'll do it tomorrow," he told himself. Then the next day. Then never. He watched the deadline pass, telling himself he was just busy. But in truth, he was terrified. Because if he applied and didn't get it, it would confirm his worst fear. Maybe I'm not good enough, so instead, he never applied. That way, he could keep the fantasy and avoid the rejection. This is how sabotage steals our future, not with loud failure, but with quiet inaction. 2. The relationship you keep pushing away. Alicia had always been drawn to emotionally unavailable partners, people who made her chase, people who made her feel small. Then she met someone different, kind, safe, present. At first it felt good, then boring, then suffocating. He's too nice. I just don't feel the spark. Maybe we're not compatible. She started picking fights, pulling away, questioning everything. But it wasn't about him. It was about the part of her that associated love with struggle, with pain, with proving her worth. Peace felt unfamiliar, so she ran from it. This is sabotage in love, destroying healthy connection because your nervous system only recognizes chaos. 3. The project you never finish. Carlos was a writer. Brilliant. He started a novel that everyone who read it said was powerful. He wrote 80%, then stopped for 2 years. He told himself he was waiting for inspiration, but deep down he was afraid of putting it out there, afraid of what people might say, afraid it wouldn't be perfect. So he stayed in the almost done phase, because potential is safer than proof. You can't fail if you never finish. You can't be judged if you never show the world what you made. This is sabotage in creativity, hiding your work behind endless edits, because your self-worth is tied to the outcome. 4. The habit you break. Just when it's working. Maya had started working out, not to get skinny, but to feel strong, mentally and physically. She built a routine, started sleeping better, feeling clearer, happier. Then came the voice. "Who do you think you are? This won't last. Don't get too comfortable." She skipped one day, then another. Then the whole routine collapsed. She told herself life got busy. But underneath that was guilt, because a part of her still believed she didn't deserve to feel good. That voice from her past, a parent, a critic, a culture, had rooted itself in her identity. And the moment she began to rise, it pulled her back down. This is sabotage in healing, undoing your progress because feeling whole feels foreign. 5. The peace you can't trust. Aaron had been in therapy for months. For the first time he felt clear, like his mind wasn't a battlefield, like he could breathe. Then one morning, out of nowhere, he picked a fight with his brother. He skipped a session, he drank again, after 90 days sober. Why? Because peace felt wrong. He didn't know who he was without the storm, without the anxiety, without the pressure. His inner chaos had been his identity, and when it disappeared, he didn't feel free. He felt lost. This is sabotage in recovery, going back to pain because you mistake it for self. These aren't just stories. They're mirrors. Maybe you see yourself in Jason's hesitation, or Alicia's retreat, or Carlos's unfinished masterpiece. Maybe it's subtle, the way you delay joy, the way you downplay praise, the way you keep planting seeds, but never let them grow. This isn't because you're weak, it's because you were never taught what to do with peace. So you go back to the pain, because it's the only place you've ever really known yourself. But here's the truth. Your sabotage isn't rebellion, it's grief. You're mourning an old version of yourself, one who only knew survival. And now you're being asked to step into something new, stability, growth, wholeness. It's terrifying. But it's also sacred, because every time you resist the urge to fall backward, you're rewriting your story, not just with words, but with action. In the next section, we'll give you clear tools and takeaways, Practical, grounded steps you can take to recognize when sabotage is happening, and how to gently but powerfully shift your response. Self-sabotage is not a flaw in your character, it's a pattern. And patterns are not broken with punishment, they're transformed with awareness and compassion. If you're tired of taking 2 steps forward and 3 steps back, if you're done watching yourself pull away from the life you say you want, these 5 takeaways are for you. They won't fix everything overnight, but they will give you a map, out of the spiral and into something deeper. 1. Awareness is the first exit. You can't change what you can't see. The first step is recognition, not judgment, not shame, just clarity. Ask yourself, where do I most often stop myself? What patterns keep repeating in my relationships, habits, or dreams? What moment always triggers my retreat? These aren't just coincidences, they're clues. The moment you name your pattern, it loses its power, because sabotage thrives in the shadows, and truth is the light that reveals it. Understand the emotion beneath the action. Self-sabotage is never random. It's your nervous system trying to protect you in the only way it knows how. That missed opportunity? Maybe it wasn't laziness. Maybe it was fear of rejection. That ended relationship. Maybe it wasn't about compatibility. Maybe it was fear of being truly seen. That creative block? Maybe it wasn't procrastination. Maybe it was fear of not being enough. Behind every sabotaging action is a scared part of you, trying to survive a threat that may no longer exist. Your job isn't to attack that part. Your job is to understand it. 3. Update the story you're living in. We live according to the stories we believe about ourselves. If your internal narrative says, I always mess things up, I'm not the type to succeed, good things don't last for people like me, then even if you win, you'll find a way to lose, because your actions will work over time to stay consistent with your identity. This is why healing isn't just about behavior, it's about belief. Ask yourself, what if the story I inherited isn't the story I have to live? Write a new one where growth doesn't mean danger, one where peace doesn't feel fake, one where you're allowed to win. 4. Build emotional tolerance for the new. Many people don't lack discipline. They lack capacity. When good things come, love, money, peace, purpose, we often feel emotionally overwhelmed, not because it's wrong, but because it's new. This is called an upper limit problem. You reach a level of joy you've never had before, and your system freaks out, so you sabotage, not because you're bad, but because you haven't built the emotional muscles to hold that level of goodness. The solution? Go slow. Let yourself expand gradually. Sit in moments of peace longer. Let compliments land. Let love stay. You have to practice receiving what you say you want, without fleeing. That's what growth really is, the ability to stay with what once felt unsafe. 5. Self-compassion, self-control. You don't beat sabotage by being harder on yourself. That voice in your head, the one that says you're lazy, dramatic, broken, that voice is part of the problem. What you need is kindness. Not the soft kind that avoids growth, but the strong kind that says, I see why you're scared, and we're still going. Every time you act differently, every time you choose calm over chaos, progress over procrastination, love over fear, you are not becoming someone new. You are remembering who you were before the fear took over. And that remembrance, that is your rebirth. What's one pattern I'm tired of reliving? Where in my life do I most feel like I'm not allowed to succeed? What part of me still believes I'm safer in chaos? What would happen if I no longer needed pain to feel like home? Sit with these, not for answers, but for honesty. Self-sabotage isn't a sign you're broken. It's a sign that something inside you still doesn't feel safe to receive the life you say you want. But safety can be built, pattern by pattern, step by step, with patience, love, and relentless truth. You're not failing. You're growing, in a language your younger self doesn't yet understand. but they will. One peaceful choice at a time. If you've made it this far, something inside you is ready to change, not with force, not with pressure, but with truth, because deep down, you've known it for a while now. You're not afraid of failure. You're afraid of becoming everything you were meant to be. You've spent years preparing for pain. What would happen if you started preparing for peace? That's the invitation. And it doesn't require a perfect plan. It just requires one honest question. What's the one place in my life where I've been holding myself back? Start there, not with judgment, but with curiosity. If this message spoke to something inside you, if it felt like a mirror, then don't let this just be another video you scroll past. Pause, reflect, let it sink in, and when you're ready, subscribe. Because here, we ask deeper questions, we dig beneath the noise, and we grow, not just to achieve more, but to be more. You're not alone in this journey. Thousands are waking up from the same patterns, and this space and this channel is for those who are ready to walk forward together. Before you go, leave a comment below. I'm done running from myself. Let that be your first step. Not for me, but for you. You're not behind, you're just becoming, and that is a beautiful place to begin.